Nicole Schilling, thank you very much for joining us. Let's start with what is, of course, a big topic of debate here in Germany, but also across the pond. The US president having announced that 5,000 troops at least are going to be withdrawn from Germany. Now, the US have about 36,000 soldiers here in Germany at the moment. 5,000 of those are going to go. And also crucially, Donald Trump has said that he's probably not going to station those long-range missiles, the Tomahawks, in Germany. How do you treat that? As mere political irritation, or is that strategic rupture between two important allies?
To be honest, we are discussing that with our partners and, of course, with the American representatives on all levels for a longer time, several months to be clear. So it is not a surprise at all. We are knowing that Europe has to step in, to lean forward and to bring more capabilities, especially when we look at the DPS capabilities, deep precision strike, at long-range fires, and therefore it is not that surprise like it might be for the public that this decision was made, and so we are working on the details now, and but it fits in our concept of capability development, and we as the German MOD, we are dealing with that, yes, like we were prepared for.
But our understanding is that this is a unit, a combat unit, that was stationed in Germany after Russia's full-scale invasion into Ukraine. And together with that decision to not station Tomahawks, critics are saying that essentially Washington is playing into Vladimir Putin's hands, because of course that combat unit would have been one to have been able to be deployed to the eastern flank if necessary very quickly. And now the Tomahawks, they could theoretically reach Moscow. That was always a red line for Vladimir Putin. Is Washington serving Putin's interests?
DPS capabilities are on the top priority of all European partners, and this is the other thing which is very important for Germany, that we do everything we do in cooperation with our partners, and so therefore many nations are now enhancing their capabilities, and so therefore it is not necessarily the fact that there is something missing and lacking. This also depends on timelines, because we are stepping up with our capabilities and we will be able to have some assets which are not there at the moment in the near future.
Okay, so I'm getting the feeling that you don't want to talk about the US as an unreliable partner?
No, not at all, because we are working very close together until today, and we are they told us what are their expectations and what are their plans, and so this is not a surprise at all for us. And our main effort during the last months was to synchronize things and to make clear what capability development means from the European perspective. And to be honest, this is nothing to talk about in the public with details. When will what system arrive, and will be IOC or FOC? This is nothing we can discuss in the public. But there is a very close link between the allies until now, and of course also with the Americans.
But especially those Tomahawks, they were supposed to fill a gap, right? The Europeans, you've just said it, they are working on developing those deep precision strike capabilities. But these systems, the ELSA mechanism, that is not going to be available before the middle of the next decade.
But it's not the only initiative. This is also something we learned. We are not just focusing on one project, and we are not focusing on one initiative and one partner program, but all of us are doing different things at the same time and looking what will work earlier. And so it's because it wouldn't be very clever in the situation to go just for one way and line of effort. All of us, we do have several ones of them, and so therefore I'm very sure that there will be DPS capabilities much earlier than in the midst of the next decade.
Could that have something to do with the Ukrainians, who are, of course, having to improvise as well when it comes to defending their own skies?
Could be.
Would you like to elaborate?
No. But
okay, was worth a try.
Yeah.
But no, seriously, how are the Ukrainians helping the German army as well in terms of trying to get the right tools, the right defense capabilities that modern warfare requires?
Yes, we do have close cooperation with the Ukrainians on several levels. We are looking at technological innovation of them. We are cooperating with the industry in the Ukraine as well as in Germany. We are now integrating training personnel from the Ukrainian armed forces in our land forces. So there are very different levels, and also with that we are really looking on everything which might be a possibility for us. When the Ukrainians have developed some capabilities which are worth looking at, then these are projects which might be interesting for Germany as well, without saying now this or that or that or that not, but we are looking very close on almost everything.
Okay. The Iran war is, of course, having a very, very big effect on weapons availabilities, on systems availabilities. How is support for Ukraine affected by the Iran war? We have
to consider about that very thoroughly, because of course there is there are some implications. It wouldn't be serious or it wouldn't be fair to say that there are no implications on that. And now we have to reconsider how we can maximize our support for the Ukraine under the current conditions. But there will be an effect, as well as on our own capabilities when we look at air defense and our capacities, especially the capacities, not only capabilities. Now we have to look for different solutions also for our Ukrainian.
Because also the US Army needs to replenish its stocks, right? Because they're using up a lot of systems that were supposed to go to Ukraine. How vulnerable are our skies at the moment if we don't get those Tomahawks, as Joe Biden, then President, promised to Olaf Scholz, then Chancellor?
Of course, this is one of our most important and most prioritized aim to be not more vulnerable than we have to. And so this is the top one priority to fill the gaps on both sides, air defense and also DPS capabilities. And so all of us, we are really working hard on it, but there is no imminent threat at the moment.
And when you look at how Ukraine is doing at the moment, you know, what I find interesting is that the German government is still refraining from saying that Ukraine must win. They always say Russia must not win, Ukraine must not lose. As a military woman, how do you define Russia winning? What would that actually mean?
From the military point of view, this is, I guess, much easier to answer than from a political one. When Russia has reached their aims, then they are winning. And so therefore it's on us to prevent Russia from winning, and for us from a German or from the Allied perspective as a whole, it is also important that we look on the effects they want to achieve on us, not only on the Ukraine, because we are convinced it's not a question about Russia and the Ukraine as alone, but Russia is trying to destroy the coherence of the alliance and the trust of people in the western part of Europe in their governance, and we should work against that and also countering, for example, threats in the media space, in the information space, because we are facing that, and we have to stay together as allies in NATO and also in the European Union, and to be strong together and not let Russia destroy the coherence of the alliance.
So what would a Russian victory in Europe mean? What would that look like?
For example, exactly that the people of Europe are losing trust in our way of life, in democracy, in our way of governing our countries, and if Russia is successful in convincing the European people that there won't be the possibility to defend themselves, and this would be a very severe situation for all of us, because this gives the possibility to rebuild the kind of societies we have in a more way Russia wants to.
And a far-right government, a pro-Russian government in power in Berlin, would that be a Russian victory?
I don't think it would be a victory as a whole, but it would be a step into the right direction from the Russian point of view.
You have published a new military strategy. Parts of that are classified, of course, but you base a lot of the rearmament that is happening in Germany on that idea that Russia poses a threat. And I do wonder, is that the main reason, or is Germany also embarking on this rearmament path because it's hedging against unreliability from other allies, especially the US?
For Germany, it is very important to take its responsibility, which we are expected from our neighbors and partners here in Central Europe. This is an experience I have in almost every talk I have in the international business. 2 weeks ago, I went to NATO, and I had to discuss with our allies about the new military strategy and our development concept, a capability concept. And you feel that especially the smaller nations are asking, what is Germany now doing, and how can we contribute, and how might this also be helpful for our respective situation. And for the European allies, it is obviously and clear, and I think this is something which was part of the discussion during the last almost 20 years, that we have to strengthen the European pillar. Now all of the nations are really talking about that very intensely. And so I think it is the major aim to make clear that we are more than in the past ready to defend ourselves. Against what? So this is to make clear we are strong together, even if we look at the European capabilities. And this is the paramount motivation for the military strategy here in Germany, to focus on the current threat. So we have made analysis of the threat situation, and we have analyzed also the conflict we have to prepare for, and then we have adjusted our capability development plans, not only looking at the far future, what should we have and what do we want to have as a capability, but also for those capabilities which are necessary to counter the current threat. And this is the most important part for the next 5 to 10 years, to be able to react on that.
And this new military strategy comes, of course, also with a new role for reservists. You're in charge of that, to actually professionalize the system again, because Germany paused conscription, then people who had served previously in the army couldn't be found because their data was not available anymore. That is a mammoth task. That is your job, basically. How's that going? Are you going to reach those numbers?
Yes, of course we will. I'm very convinced on that because now we have the technological possibilities to get the data from the civilian authorities, and with the new kind of military service, the voluntary service, the number of the reservists will increase. And they are very important.
It was so difficult for them to even find a contact person to talk to, right? Even if they were willing.
But it's getting better and better and better. And really, we have adjusted almost everything and every procedure. And we now will have implemented a new contact hotline for the reservists and for those who are interested in becoming a reservist. So we are really making it very easy to get in contact with us, even if this is not perfect at every place of our nation or our country at the moment. But we are very successful in recruiting at the moment. So we have increased the numbers of applications, and we have increased the numbers of new servicemen which are joining the new military service, and therefore it shows that we are successful. And we were already the biggest recruiter in Germany for years with the numbers we were recruiting, and so now we are getting better and better, and and we are increasing our numbers by 10%. And more than 10% in the last year. So I'm very convinced that this is a task and a challenge which could be made successfully by us.
Okay, we'll ask you again when those deadlines approach.
Of course.
But one thing is, of course, that German society works quite differently from, say, Scandinavian countries, where the concept of total defense is something that children learn about. There is a lot that has to happen in German society to make it more resilient. That is what I keep hearing from military experts, but also from political experts. How is that going? When you look at the polls, not everybody seems to support the idea that Germany has to rearm.
But more and more and more people do support this idea. So the numbers are not going down, but they are going up, which is a good signal. And for example, the new military service and the reserve are building bridges to the society. But you're absolutely right. There is no different from the Scandinavian countries. It's not in our DNA somehow that whole of society. Defense ideas are common knowledge. There are many people in Germany who say, okay, this is something for the security branch, for the armed forces, for the police forces. It's nothing which is important for me personally. But as we do have now some experience with crisis in Germany during the last years, I see and I feel more people being more interested in, and they want to have information, and it's more interest and need for information than aversion against it. So I'm very convinced that this is also on the good way.
And Mrs. Schilling, you are, of course, the highest ranking woman within the Bundeswehr. As Germany's highest ranking military woman, one stereotype is that women are better at dealing with money than men are. Where does the next euro have to go when it comes to Germany's defense systems?
When I look on what we did in the last years, we were invested very much money into armament and stuff, and gear. So I guess infrastructure is the next priority where we should invest the money in, for housing, of course, but also for transport ways, not only in the military system itself, but also in the civilian infrastructure. Because when we look at the role of Germany as a turning table for the logistics system, the hub, right? We call it in Germany the Drehscheibe Deutschland. It's already a fixed terminus, and it shows the importance of our role in the family of plans and in the defense plans of NATO, and therefore I think we have to do more there.
Nicole Schilling, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.